Sarah's adopted older brother took pity on her for harboring a secret crush for 15 years, so he drugged his best friend and brought the man to her bed. Forced to be his antidote, she woke up the next day to find that Ethan coldly agreed to marry her, only to move abroad shortly after. Sarah and her daughter waited for 3 long years for him to finally return. However, when they went to the airport to pick him up, their daughter innocently called out, "Daddy." Hearing this, the woman linking arms with him, Chloe, couldn't handle the shock. With tear-filled red eyes, Chloe ran away, but was tragically hit by a drunk driver and died on the spot. From that day on, Ethan never smiled again. He stopped going abroad and stayed by Sarah and their daughter day and night. She thought she had finally found happiness, but unexpectedly, on her daughter's 3rd birthday, a sudden fire broke out in their house. Her first instinct was to run and save Ethan and their daughter, but he casually locked the door, his eyes cold and brimming with hatred. "If it weren't for you and your daughter, how could Chloe have died?" he spat. "Since the day she passed away, I've been living like a soulless corpse. I've long wanted to drag you both down, to hell with her." As the flames quickly engulfed her and her daughter, Sarah finally understood just how deeply Ethan despised them. But when she opened her eyes again, she found herself back on the very night Ethan was drugged. Hi everyone. If you were given a second chance at life, would you suffer in silence, or would you completely turn the tables? Let's follow our female lead as she walks away from a toxic relationship to rewrite her own destiny. Seeing his flushed face and hazy eyes as he lunged toward her, she used every ounce of her strength to push him away. Then, she immediately called his true love. A heavy, uncomfortable panting sound echoed through the room, making Sarah shudder. She looked toward the source of the sound, only to see Ethan completely under the influence of the drug. His face was burning red, and several buttons on his black dress shirt were torn open, making him look as if he were on the verge of losing his mind. "Sarah, come here," he called her name in a hoarse voice, his eyes clouded by the narcotic. In her past life, she definitely wouldn't have been able to stop herself from rushing over to check on him. But now, she only stepped back in sheer panic. In her previous life, it was exactly because both she and Ethan were drugged that night that they ended up sleeping together. He had coldly agreed to marry her afterward, but spent all his time abroad, completely indifferent to whether she and their daughter lived or died. Only much later did she discover that he had moved abroad because Chloe was living there. The day he finally returned to the country was solely to give Chloe an explanation. But because Sarah's daughter called him Daddy, Chloe ran off in distress, resulting in a fatal car crash. From then on, Ethan had directed all his vengeance towards Sarah and her daughter. Now, the fatal mistake hadn't happened yet. As long as she wasn't the one to relieve his drugged state tonight, she and her child wouldn't have to face that tragic fate. Without a second thought, she dialed Chloe's number. "Chloe, you need to get to the Lexington Hotel right now." She pushed hard against the door, barricading the burning hot Ethan inside the room. At the same time, her own body was gradually growing feverish. She remembered the words her adopted brother, Mark, had said when he brought Ethan to this hotel. He had claimed that it was obvious she and Ethan had feelings for each other. So there was no point in hesitating. He wanted to give her a hand, so Ethan could become his brother-in-law sooner. She had stared at her brother in disbelief, asking if he was trying to get her killed and demanding he let her go. But Mark had merely given a faint smile and pushed her toward Ethan, revealing that he had spiked her drink as well. He told her to just enjoy it, and that she would thank him after tonight. Sarah had laughed bitterly to herself, knowing Mark had no idea that the person Ethan truly loved had never been her. A little over 10 minutes later, Chloe rushed over, her face pale. She looked at Sarah with deep suspicion. "Sarah, everyone knows you have a crush on Ethan. Would you really be this kind? Wasn't he out to dinner with your brother today? How did he suddenly get drugged? Are you pulling some kind of trick again?" Initially, Chloe thought this was all just a trap, but when Chloe saw that the man in the room was indeed Ethan, she frowned. Sarah pushed her inside while explaining, "No, there's no time to talk, Chloe. I know you and Ethan love each other. You wouldn't want him falling into another woman's hands, right? He needs you right now. He can barely hold on." Sarah didn't know what kind of drug her brother had used, but its effects were incredibly strong. In her previous life, Ethan had tried to bite his tongue to a bloody pulp just to stay awake, and had even broken a few of his own fingers to restrain himself, but ultimately couldn't withstand it. But now that Chloe was here, he didn't have to suffer anymore, right? Suddenly, a low, muffled groan echoed from inside the room. The veins on Ethan's forehead and neck were bulging. Chloe stared at him in stunned silence. She blushed, held her head high, adjusted her clothes, and then turned back to look at Sarah. At least you know your place and didn't take advantage of Ethan. Now that I'm here, you can stop dreaming. Wait, why is your face so red too? Sarah hurriedly shook her head and urged her to go inside quickly. As Ethan tore the strap of Chloe's dress, Sarah closed her eyes and firmly shut the door. Not long after, indescribable sounds echoed from within. Every sound was like a blade slicing into her heart, hurting so much she couldn't bear it any longer. She turned and fled the hotel, not daring to look back. The drug in her own system was starting to take effect. In her previous life, half the reason she couldn't push Ethan away was because this drug had made her completely lose her mind. Taking advantage of the little clarity she had left, she stumbled and stopped in front of a high-end private club. Without overthinking it, she rushed straight inside. A young staff member with a fresh face smiled and asked her, "Miss, what service do you need?" Sarah patted her head, trying to stay awake. "I want to book a male host." The staff member was a bit taken aback, then led her into a private room and went to call someone. She didn't know how long she had waited before the door was pushed open. A tall, well-built man dressed in a neat suit walked in. His gaze fell on her disheveled clothes, and he instantly froze. Before he could even open his mouth, she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed his lips. "I've been drugged. Help me." The man was stunned. He seemed to frown, grabbing her hands to push her away. "You want money, right? Name your price," she said, pulling a bank card from her pocket and shoving it into his hand. Then, she reached out to unbuckle his belt. In her haze, she thought she heard the man call her name. "Sarah, don't do anything foolish." "So annoying," she frowned, and kissed his lips again. Sure enough, he didn't say anything else. Worthy of being a host at a high-end club, she thought. Not only was he incredibly handsome, but he also really knew how to play hard to get. Finally, she heard a sigh above her head. "Since you're the one initiating this, don't regret it." Immediately after, the man flipped her over, pinning her to the bed, and kissed her fiercely like a violent storm. After a passionate night, Sarah suddenly woke up before dawn. It took her a moment to realize she had just slept with a strange man, and that man was a male host from the club. He was still sleeping, so she quietly put on her clothes and sneaked out of the room. Passing by a large glass window of a shopping mall, she discovered her clothes were torn, and her neck was covered in glaringly bright red marks. Taking advantage of the fact that her brother wasn't awake yet, she hurried home and used concealer to cover them up. The moment she stepped through the door, a cold voice rang out above her head. "Where were you last night?" Startled, she looked up and saw Ethan leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed, staring at her. She froze. Wasn't he supposed to be at the hotel with Chloe? There was still a hickey on his neck, and his gaze was lazy yet icy. She lowered her head, desperately trying to hide her guilty conscience. She had thought that after what happened last night, she and Ethan would completely cut ties, and from now on, she would only see him as an older brother. "No, I just went out for a little walk," she replied. "How are you back so early?" Ethan's new house was still undergoing renovations. Because of his relationship with her brother Mark, he was temporarily staying at their house for a few months. Sarah looked around the room. "Where is Chloe? Didn't she come back with you?" The next second, Ethan's eyes darkened and fixed directly on her. "Sarah, where exactly did you go last night? Who gave you those marks on your neck?" She froze, taking a moment to process his words. It turned out he was talking about the hickeys on her neck. She instinctively pulled her collar up to cover them. It's nothing, just mosquito bites." Ethan sneered coldly. "Don't think I don't know. Last night, besides drugging me, your brother also spiked your drink." "What? Were you two colluding with each other? You couldn't sleep with me, so you ran out to find another man?" "Sarah, did you think that if you purposely called Chloe over and then disappeared all night, I would be worried about you? You're playing this game of hard to get all wrong." Sarah was dumbfounded. Why was Ethan so angry? Hadn't she just helped bring him and Chloe together? Realizing this, a wave of bitterness washed over her heart. It turned out that in his eyes, her act of stepping aside was nothing more than a despicable provocation. His cold, indifferent voice continued to ring out. "As you can see, Chloe and I were together last night. I am going to marry her. Let me give you a piece of advice. Whatever tricks you're planning, you'd better drop them." Sarah lowered her head and let out a faint smile. "Okay, I'm sorry about my brother drugging you, but I really don't like you anymore." Ethan's gaze darkened as he stared deeply at her, clearly not believing a single word. His brows furrowed tightly. Everyone in their social circle knew that she was secretly in love with Ethan and refused to love anyone else. She had rejected countless blind dates because of him and had decisively cut off all romantic prospects with the opposite sex. But now she understood her mistake. She didn't want to end up like in her previous life, helplessly watching her daughter be born in hope, only to die in despair. Ethan was just about to say something when her brother's panicked scream suddenly echoed from behind them. "Oh my God, what the hell? Why is there another person in the house?" Mark rushed over, trembling as he pointed upstairs. "Chloe? Since when did she sleep at our house?" Ethan's expression turned cold. He casually closed the bedroom door and calmly explained, "I brought her back last night. We were tired after being up all night, and she isn't used to staying in hotels, so I brought her here to rest." "What?" Mark looked at him with a complex expression, then turned to look at Sarah. "Did you two not do anything last night?" Finally, his highly suspicious gaze fell on both Sarah's and Ethan's necks. Panicking, Sarah spun around and fled. "I'm really sleepy. I'm going back to my room to get some rest." She rushed to her room and locked the door behind her. From outside, she could still faintly hear her brother interrogating Ethan. Right before lunch, Mark knocked on her door, calling her out to eat, but she didn't budge. "You go ahead and eat. I'm not hungry yet," she called back. Not long after, Chloe's gentle voice rang out from the hallway. "Let me wake Sarah up. Honestly, Ethan and I getting together so quickly is all thanks to her." She tapped on the door. "Sarah, it's Chloe. Please do me a favor and come out to eat with us." Since she was a child, her parents and brother had taught her to be polite and respect guests. Left with no other choice, Sarah stiffly opened the door and walked out. The dining table was silent. Ethan didn't say a word, but he gently placed food into Chloe's bowl. In just a few short minutes, the bowl of rice in front of Chloe was piled high like a small mountain. "Ethan, Sarah is still right here. She was already so sad last night. Don't make her jealous again," Chloe teased lightly. Hearing this, Ethan coldly lifted his head and looked at Sarah. "What does she have to be jealous of? The one I want to marry is you. Mark and I are the same. We both just see her as a sister," Ethan said. Sarah kept quiet, lowering her head to silently eat her food, which tasted as bland as wax. Her brother opened his mouth as if to say something, but ultimately remained silent, only sighing repeatedly. A stray piece of food got caught on the corner of Chloe's lip. Ethan reached out to wipe it away for her, but Chloe giggled and held his hand back. "Ethan, use your mouth to wipe it clean for me," she cooed, tilting her head and proactively leaning close. Ethan froze for a few seconds before smiling and kissing her lips. Chloe turned her head, looking at Sarah with a smug expression. "Sarah, sweetie, don't take it to heart. Ethan has been addicted to this feeling ever since last night. You're still a single girl. You'll understand when you have a boyfriend in the future." Sarah couldn't stomach the meal anymore. She put down her utensils and said in a calm voice, "I'm full. Please, carry on." No matter how dense her brother was, he understood exactly what was happening. After the meal, Mark was so angry that he slapped his thigh. "You silly girl. Last night was such a perfect opportunity. How could you let that fake bitch Chloe snatch him away? Ethan might not see through her scheming, but do you think I can't? Them flaunting their affection at the dinner table today. Wasn't that deliberately trying to provoke you? I've already told you, you and Ethan clearly have feelings for each other." Sarah cut him off. "Mark, please don't say things like that anymore." Her brother looked at her in disbelief. She smiled. "I don't like Ethan anymore. Help me arrange a blind date." Her brother had always doted on her. He confirmed it with her multiple times to ensure she wasn't joking, then let out a sigh of relief. "My good sister, you've finally seen the light. I told you not to waste your time on a single guy forever. Ethan is indeed an outstanding man, but there are plenty of men who are even more outstanding than him. I'll get in touch with the young master of the Miller family, Lucas Miller. You turned him down before when it came to a business marriage alliance, but the Miller family is much wealthier than Ethan's family. Not only is he handsome, but he's also never been in love before, just like you. When the time comes, the two of you can meet up and see how it goes. Who knows? Maybe you'll like him." Sarah obediently took out her phone to add his contact info. She had thought giving up on Ethan would be incredibly difficult, but now that she had truly let go, she realized it wasn't that big of a deal, after all. This time, she could change her fate and the fate of her daughter. "Ethan, help me carry my suitcase to your room," Chloe's sweet voice rang out, along with a smile. After speaking, she turned to Sarah. "Sarah, Ethan's villa isn't finished with renovations yet. He wants to see me all the time, so I have no choice but to move in here for a few days. You don't mind, do you?" Sarah shook her head. "Of course I don't mind." She watched as Ethan busied himself helping Chloe with her luggage, giving a self-deprecating smile as she recalled her previous life. After that night in her past life, fearing that Chloe would be hurt, Ethan had used the excuse of studying abroad to take her out of the country. Afterward, he had hastily thrown together a careless wedding with Sarah before heading abroad himself. Sarah had given birth to their daughter, Lily, all on her own, patiently waiting for his return. Yet, in the end, all she got was the sight of him appearing at the airport hand in hand with Chloe. Back then, the look in his eyes when he looked at Sarah was always cold and indifferent, completely unlike the tenderness he showed whenever he looked at Chloe now. Just as Sarah turned to leave, she unexpectedly bumped into something. Chloe, who was holding a basin of water, suddenly spilled it all over herself and shrieked. "Chloe!" Ethan's face fell, and he immediately surged forward to shield her, casting a wary glare at Sarah. Cradled in his arms, Chloe cried as she said, "Sarah, if you didn't want me staying here, you could have just said so. This dress is an expensive gift that Ethan just bought for me, and I cherish it so much. Why did you have to purposely bump into me to ruin it?" Sarah explained in a panic. I didn't mean to." "Enough," Ethan snapped. "Sarah, I told you, stop playing these childish games. If you don't want Chloe here, then we will move out in 2 days." He didn't give her a chance to explain. He bent down, picked Chloe up in his arms, and carried her away to change clothes. Chloe wrapped her arms around his neck, the corners of her lips curling into a smug smile directed at Sarah. When she walked out wearing the dress Sarah had cherished the most, Sarah's face instantly went pale. Ethan said matter-of-factly, "Anyway, ever since I gave you this dress, you've never worn it. Instead of letting it go to waste, it's better to let Chloe wear it." Sarah smiled bitterly. The only reason she hadn't worn that dress was because she cherished it so much. Since they had known each other, it was the only birthday gift Ethan had ever given her. After he found out she liked him, he never gave her anything else. That was why she treated it like a treasure, unable to bring herself to wear it. But now, she simply nodded indifferently. "Fine. I wasn't going to wear it anyway. I was planning to get rid of it or give it away." In the following days, Chloe clung to Ethan, constantly displaying their affection and purposely putting on a show in front of Sarah. On the day Ethan got down on one knee to propose to Chloe, Sarah was so distracted that she got into a car accident. Though it wasn't serious, she was still taken to the hospital by a passerby. Their whole group came to visit. Chloe furrowed her brows, looking on the verge of tears. "Ethan, is it because we got engaged that Sarah lost her mind and purposely threw herself at a car? It's all my fault. If I hadn't insisted on you proposing, this wouldn't have happened to Sarah." She blamed herself incessantly. Ethan comforted her, his heart aching. "It has nothing to do with you. Be a good girl, the milk tea I ordered for you is arriving soon. Go outside and get it." As soon as Chloe left the room, Ethan's face instantly darkened. He frowned, his voice icy. "Sarah, did you purposely cause trouble on the day of my proposal? Do you really want to use every trick in the book to tear us apart? How many times do I have to tell you? Give up on those thoughts. There will never be anything between us." Sarah chuckled softly and replied calmly, "Ethan, you've misunderstood. I only see you as an older brother, and you're overthinking things. My accident has absolutely nothing to do with you." Ethan didn't believe her. He fell silent for a moment before speaking slowly. "I'm about to marry Chloe, Sarah. If you've truly let go, you should find a boyfriend. Stop obsessing over me." Sarah nodded. "I already have a boyfriend." "If you don't have one, just say you don't. There's no need to lie." Ethan's eyes darkened, his face cold as he looked at her. A sudden, inexplicable surge of frustration welled up inside him, a feeling so strong it made him feel suffocated. But right at that moment, Chloe pushed the door open and walked in, carrying a cup of milk tea. She smiled and handed the cup to Sarah, intentionally raising her hand to show off the diamond ring on her ring finger. "Sarah, stop wasting your efforts. No matter what you do, it will only make Ethan hate you more. Do you see this? The only person he loves is me. He put this ring on my finger himself. Give up your hopes." But before leaving the room, Ethan looked deeply at Sarah. "Even if you don't have a boyfriend, it's fine. You are Mark's sister, which makes you my sister too. As long as you don't harbor any foolish thoughts, I can take care of you for the rest of your life." Hearing this, a flash of resentment sparked in Chloe's eyes, but she maintained a gentle smile on her face. "That's right. You can see me as your older sister. Ethan and I will take care of you." But Sarah wasn't lying. She really did have a boyfriend. Her gaze fell softly on the gardenias on the nightstand. They were a gift from her boyfriend, Lucas Miller. Initially, she had only agreed to her brother's request to go on the blind date to give it a try. But when she arrived at the cafe, she was stunned to discover that Lucas Miller was the very same male host she had slept with that night. Seeing him, her face had flushed crimson, but he acted as if he had expected this. He chuckled softly and cornered her against the wall. Feeling shy? What's the matter? Weren't you quite the initiator last time? She was mortified and had wanted to cut off all contact with him. But unexpectedly, one time when Sarah was returning late at night, she was followed by a few thugs. It was Lucas who appeared, threw a few punches at them, and took her home safely. On the way, she curiously asked, "Aren't you a male host?" He drove while raising an eyebrow. "Who told you I was a male host? That day, you were clearly impatient, randomly grabbed a man and forced yourself on him. Good thing I was only visiting the club for an inspection that day. Otherwise, who knows whose life you would have ruined." Angry, she punched him, only for him to catch her hand and pull her into his arms. "Sarah, I've liked you for a long time. Be my girlfriend." Even the recent car accident had only happened because she had heard Lucas wanted to propose, causing her to lose focus and sustain minor injuries. Every time she thought of his face, her heart was filled with a small, sweet joy. After being discharged from the hospital, she consistently went out early and didn't return until after 11 at night. One day, upon arriving home, she unexpectedly saw Ethan standing at the door. He was wearing loungewear, looking at her with a complex gaze. "Sarah, have you been purposely avoiding me lately?" She was taken aback for a moment before laughing. "You're overthinking things." But Ethan blocked her path, furrowing his brows and tightly grasping her wrist. "It's best if I am overthinking. My wedding with Chloe is coming up soon. I advise you not to play any more tricks." She pulled her hand away and looked at him sincerely. "I wish you two happiness." Ethan's expression finally softened, but when his gaze landed on her neck, his face changed color again. "Who gave you that mark on your neck? Don't tell me it's a mosquito bite again." It was a mark Lucas had intentionally left during the day, claiming he wanted to declare his territory. In the past, she had always been afraid of causing misunderstandings. But now that she officially had a boyfriend, there was no need to hide anymore. "It has nothing to do with me," she said flatly. Ethan's face grew increasingly gloomy. After speaking, she turned around and walked away, but she didn't realize that in a dark corner, Chloe's face had turned pale, a flash of jealous hatred gleaming in her eyes. "Good girl, I'm taking you somewhere fun." That day, she received a text message from Lucas. Just as she was happily about to go out to meet him, she saw Chloe sitting on the swing in her yard. "Sarah?" Ethan's voice rang out from behind her, but she pretended not to hear him. When she got home that evening, before she could even catch her breath, her bedroom door was kicked open. Ethan stormed in furiously, his face filled with uncontrollable rage. He raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. "Sarah, how could you be so vicious? Chloe was merely playing on your swing for a bit. Were you so jealous that you had to resort to purposely cutting the rope to make her fall? Now, she's in the hospital. Are you satisfied? What swing?" The slap made her dizzy, her head spinning. She was still holding her phone in her hand, its screen still lit up, displaying a photo of her and Lucas taken earlier that day. Ethan glanced at it, his expression growing even darker. He snatched her phone and smashed it onto the ground, shattering it to pieces. "Has it come to this, and you still think these fake photos can fool me? Sarah, you're a great actor. Do you think that by casually finding a man to be your fake boyfriend, you can escape the blame for hurting Chloe? Dream on." He didn't even bother to listen to her explanation, dragging her straight to the yard to look at the swing. The rope of the swing had been snapped. Chloe had gritted her teeth and stubbornly insisted that Sarah had intentionally cut it. She had cried like a pitiful victim. "Ethan, I don't dare to stay at Sarah's house anymore. I know she secretly loves you. I thought she had already let go, but I didn't expect her to lay a trap for me here. Does she think that as long as I'm dead, she will be rightfully able to marry you? If so, then she would be the bride at the wedding, right?" "Sob, I've lost," Chloe cried. "Sarah is too scheming. I can't compete with her. Can I just give you up? As soon as I'm discharged from the hospital, I'll leave." Ethan's eyes were filled with fury. "Fine, I'll immediately have someone move us elsewhere. Sarah, I gave you a chance, but time and time again, you don't know your limits and deliberately try to harm Chloe. Those who do wrong must pay the price." As soon as he finished speaking, over a dozen bodyguards immediately appeared from behind and surrounded Sarah. An ominous premonition washed over her. She gritted her teeth and glared at him. "Ethan, what are you trying to do to me?" "I already told you, I wasn't the one who cut the swing's rope." Ethan sneered coldly, growing even more furious. "There are only the two of you siblings in your family. Mark definitely wasn't the one who did this. If you didn't cut it, are you saying Chloe cut it herself and injured herself? Sarah, are you saying you don't have a motive to do this?" But before Sarah could even finish her sentence, Chloe sobbed and continued. The other day, Sarah told me that if she couldn't marry you, she wouldn't let me marry you smoothly either. At first, I thought she was just speaking out of momentary anger. I didn't expect her to actually want to kill me. Ethan's face was as cold as ice. Without giving Sarah a chance to react, he ordered the bodyguards to tie her up tightly. I won't lay a hand on you myself, but Sarah, I want you to taste the feeling of being injured just like Chloe. She fell from the swing and got hurt, so I will let you experience that exact same pain. She was dragged by them up to the second-floor balcony. But since this house didn't have a swing, Ethan said, then throw her down from the second floor. She won't die anyway. There's a doctor on standby downstairs to ensure she doesn't lose her life. Throw her down. Following Ethan's order, the bodyguards immediately lifted her up effortlessly, as if they were just picking up a small rabbit. Stop. Let her go. Two voices rang out simultaneously. Startled, Sarah turned her head. It was Lucas Miller and her brother, Mark. Mark's face was pale. He rushed straight toward her and furiously roared, Ethan, if you dare to touch Sarah one more time, then from now on, we are no longer brothers. Lucas looked at Sarah, his eyes filled with heartache, but compared to her brother, he was much calmer. Mr. Ethan, even if Sarah did something wrong, we can talk about it civilly. Ordering your bodyguards to act like this is enough to constitute attempted murder. Sarah? Ethan repeated her name, his voice so frigid it could freeze the air itself. He narrowed his eyes at Lucas, his expression turning even more gloomy. CEO Miller, I don't know what wind blew you here. If Sarah made a mistake as an older brother, I have to teach her a lesson. Even if you have the backing of the Miller family, I advise you not to meddle in matters that don't concern you. Look at what you're saying. What nonsense. Mark was purple with rage. You think you're her brother? Ethan, I am Sarah's biological brother. Even if she is in the wrong, the one to teach her a lesson should be me. Not to mention, she is the sister I love the most. In the past, because she liked you, I tried to help make it happen. But now she doesn't love you anymore. So don't even think about laying a single finger on her. Moreover, both her boyfriend and I are right here. If Sarah is truly guilty today, let the law handle it. It's not your place to punish her. Everyone in their social circle knew that Mark was incredibly protective and excessively doted on his younger sister. Previously, just because Sarah secretly loved Ethan, Mark hadn't hesitated to drug them both just to create an opportunity for them. What he hated the most was seeing her suffer any kind of grievance. Ethan, of course, knew this. His face grew cold, and he frowned. Mark, it was Sarah who wanted to harm Chloe. She cut the swing's rope. If I hadn't noticed in time and caught Chloe, she would be dead by now. Do you think this is a trivial matter? Mark burst into laughter, but it was a laugh full of contempt. Ethan, I always thought you were just stupid, but I didn't expect you to be this incredibly stupid. I've known for a long time that whenever you're around Chloe, you lose all sense of reason. But I never imagined you could be so unbelievably idiotic. Mark's words left Ethan momentarily stunned. What do you mean? He asked. Mark laughed coldly, pulled out his phone, and opened a surveillance video. This is from the security camera in my yard. It's blatantly obvious that the swing's rope was cut by Chloe herself. She played a trick to harm someone, but she didn't realize there was a hidden camera at my house. Ethan stared intensely at the phone screen. In the video, in the dead of night, Chloe was clearly seen sneaking out with a knife to cut the swing's rope. The next morning, she had pretended to be friendly and greeted Sarah. But at the time, Sarah was busy going on a date with Lucas and hadn't paid any attention to them. She hadn't expected Chloe to continue playing out this charade and then pin all the blame on her. Ethan's face instantly went pale. He spun around and rushed straight to the hospital, storming in to confront Chloe. Chloe was still putting on a pitiful act. Ethan, it hurts so much. The doctor said I fractured 2 bones in my leg and the damage reached the bone. It will take 3 whole months to fully recover. For these 3 months, I won't be able to take care of myself at all. Serves you right, Ethan interrupted coldly, tossing the phone, playing the video onto her hospital bed. But ending up in this state is your own doing. Chloe, I originally thought you were pure and kind-hearted, but in the end, why did you mess with the swing? Why did you intentionally frame Sarah? Chloe's face turned green, then white. She had thought she blocked all the surveillance cameras. She hadn't expected to miss one. With the evidence laid out so clearly, she had no room to deny it. Still, she managed to squeeze out a few tears, her voice choking. Ethan, everything I did was for you. It's obvious that you love me, and you promised to marry me. But why are your eyes always drawn to Sarah? Is it because she's younger than me, or is it because she doesn't love you anymore, and things you can't have become more precious? Do you have any idea how much I love you? That night, I threw away my dignity and was willing to be your antidote. but you never gave me enough of a sense of security. If you had, I wouldn't have been so jealous of Sarah." "Shut up." For the first time, Ethan shouted in Chloe's face. Both of them froze. He frustratedly rubbed his temples, not understanding what was wrong with himself. Clearly, after being reborn, the first thing he had wanted to do was cut ties with Sarah and wholeheartedly cherish Chloe. Clearly, everything was going exactly according to plan. So why did his heart feel so empty and suffocatingly uncomfortable? It felt as if something had been ripped out of his chest, leaving a gaping hole. "Chloe, you're too worked up right now. Let's postpone the wedding for the time being. We need to calm down and rethink everything." After saying this, he didn't bother to look at Chloe's reaction and turned to leave. "Ethan, I'm pregnant." His footsteps halted. "What did you say?" As if she had decided to gamble everything, Chloe smirked coldly. "You said you would take responsibility for me. Ethan, I'm pregnant. It's your child," from that very night. Lucas had just brought Sarah back from a walk, and they arrived at the door of the hospital room right as they heard this sentence. Sarah froze slightly. That was right. In her previous life, it was exactly around this time that she had discovered she was pregnant. But when Ethan heard the news, he hadn't reacted at all, and still decided to move abroad. She had given birth to their daughter, Lily, all by herself. She had endured immense hardships to raise the little girl, loving her like a delicate flower. Lily hadn't asked for much. She only hoped to meet her dad just once. But merely for calling out "Daddy," she lost her life. "Sarah, what are you thinking about? Hurry and try this pastry. Have the durian crepe I brought? It's still hot." Lucas's gentle voice pulled Sarah out of her reverie. She shook her head, pushing those unwanted thoughts out of her mind, and took the piece of crepe he had already cut for her. "It's so good. How did you know I like this flavor?" Lucas affectionately tapped the tip of her nose. "You greedy little kitten. How could I not know what you like? Your brother is my strategist. The two of us have been on the same side for a long time now. As long as it can make you happy, he'll reveal any information to me." Sarah giggled. Just imagining the sight of the two men sitting down to scheme ways to win her over was both hilarious and endearing. "Don't move." Lucas suddenly stopped her. "You have food all over the corner of your mouth." He smiled knowingly and leaned in closer. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Seeing you eat so happily makes me want to have a taste too," he replied softly. With a low chuckle, he kissed her lips. The kiss was gentle, yet entirely captivating, making the piece of crepe in her hand suddenly seem tasteless in comparison. However, outside the hospital window, through the transparent glass, Ethan accidentally witnessed this entire scene. In his memories, ever since she was a young teenager, Sarah had always trailed behind him, constantly calling out, "Ethan, Ethan!" As she grew a bit older, she would blush every time she saw him, no longer calling him brother, but instead using his full name. By then, he had clearly understood the young girl's feelings. She had secretly been in love with him for 15 years. Initially, he had only seen her as a child, but gradually, he himself was moved by her. Even her brother, Mark, had seen it. If it hadn't been for what happened that night, if that dirty drugging trick hadn't been played on him, perhaps he would have actually considered starting a relationship with her. But Chloe's death had caused him to completely hate Sarah. Being reborn, he only wanted to make it up to Chloe. But unexpectedly, Sarah seemed to have turned into a completely different person. She completely withdrew all the affection she had for him. And so quickly, she was already able to be intimate with another man. Seeing her and that man kissing so tenderly, a wave of bitter jealousy suddenly surged within Ethan's heart, so sour that it made him feel a bitter lump in his throat. His fists were clenched so tightly that the veins on his neck bulged. Could it be that his Sarah had truly given up on him this time? On the day Sarah was discharged from the hospital, Lucas personally took her home. Her brother enthusiastically insisted he stay for a meal, but Lucas just smiled and politely declined. Before leaving, he affectionately rubbed her head and said gently, "There's no rush. I'm still busy preparing the proposal. Wait a little longer. Once we become family, we can have as many meals together as we want." From that day on, he had someone send her a gift every single day. Sometimes it was a bracelet, a necklace, or a watch. Other times it was fresh flowers, ranging from red roses to gardenias. No matter what the gift was, he always managed to make her happy. After Sarah was discharged, Ethan and Chloe also knew their place and moved out. Even if they hadn't left on their own, given her brother's hot temper, he would have soon ordered people to pack up their belongings and throw them out of the house anyway. An idiot like Ethan is no longer a brother of mine from now on. Anyone who dares to bully my sister is my enemy. At first, Sarah thought Mark was just saying it in the heat of the moment, but unexpectedly, the very next day, he directly blocked all of Ethan's contacts. Sarah and Lucas's relationship progressed incredibly well. Recently, he even specifically took her to meet his family. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, adored her. After meeting her just once, they decided she was their future daughter-in-law. Seeing the wedding day approaching, Sarah counted down the days on the calendar, eagerly anticipating the day she would marry Lucas. She had thought that she and Ethan would never have anything to do with each other ever again. But Sarah didn't expect to run into him again. That night, on her way home from a stroll, she was suddenly blocked by Ethan. He reeked of alcohol. He swung his hand and threw a stack of printed photos right in front of her. Every single one of them was a picture of her being intimate with Lucas. There were photos of him feeding her, photos of him carrying her when she was discharged from the hospital, and even photos of him pinning her against a wall and brazenly kissing her. Looking at those photos, Ethan's face grew increasingly gloomy. "Sarah, do you have any shame left? Cuddling with a man in broad daylight like this? No wonder you haven't been clinging to me lately. So you've changed your target, huh? What's the matter? Did you see that CEO Miller is younger and richer than me, so you rushed to latch onto him?" Every word he spoke was full of malice. Unable to hold back any longer, Sarah raised her hand and slapped him hard across the face. "Ethan, am I really that cheap in your eyes? Lucas is my boyfriend. What's wrong with me being intimate with my own boyfriend? Besides, we are getting married soon. You and your fiancé are about to tie the knot too, right? We are both about to get married, so why do you care so much about me?" The light in Ethan's eyes dimmed bit by bit, ultimately leaving behind only a heavy, profound sorrow. The stench of alcohol on him was overwhelming. His voice sounded almost like a plea. "How could you? Sarah, how could you be with someone else? How could you marry someone else? Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten our daughter Lily? Ever since our past life, you shamelessly seduced me. You even had your brother drug me just to force me to marry you and have a child with you. You clearly loved me like crazy. So why are you moving on to another man so quickly now?" Sarah froze. So it turned out that he had been reborn as well. "If you can marry someone else, why can't I?" The next second, she forcefully shook off his hand. "If you remember everything, then there's no need to ask me. The person you love is Chloe. In our past life, I didn't know, so I accidentally ruined things between you two. But in this life, I will help you two be together. Furthermore, there will never be a daughter between us ever again. Finally, I wish you and Chloe happiness together forever." Having said that, she turned and walked away without the slightest bit of regret. If it were before, perhaps she would have tried to suppress her emotions, pretending to be strong even though she couldn't bear to let go in her heart. But now, she only felt an immense sense of relief. It turned out that letting go was truly this simple. Sarah didn't expect that her and Lucas's wedding day would coincide with Ethan's wedding. Because Chloe was pregnant, Ethan was forced to fulfill his commitment and proceed with the marriage as planned. However, on that big day, he showed up completely drunk. Standing from a distance, he watched Chloe in her wedding dress walking toward him. For some reason, an image from his past life flashed through his mind. Sarah in her wedding dress, taking step after step toward him. "Ethan," he heard her call out to him, and he joyfully lifted his head. But when he looked closely, the person in the wedding dress in front of him was still the familiar Chloe. She smiled gently and asked him, "What's wrong? Did you lose sleep last night? Today is the wedding day we've been looking forward to for so long. You should be happy. I won't allow our wedding to have even a single flaw." Ethan listened with growing frustration. The more he listened, the more meaningless it all felt. Finally, he suddenly realized what had pushed him into this situation. It was because in his past life, he had never been able to have Chloe. Out of guilt, he always thought he needed to make it up to her. But he had forgotten that after the fire in his past life, he had actually allowed Sarah into his heart. "No, this isn't right. I have to go find Sarah. I have to tell her." The wedding ceremony was still ongoing, and the officiant was right in the middle of reading the vows. But Ethan suddenly threw everything aside, turned around, and ran out. On his way out, he even kicked aside a wedding bouquet lying by the aisle. Chloe's face instantly turned pale. "Ethan, do you know what you are doing? You can't just abandon me." But no one answered. Seeing the groom disappear right in the middle of the ceremony, the guests buzzed with gossip. "I heard the groom was forced into this marriage. Could the rumors be true? Look at the bride's face. It's so awful. People say it's a shotgun wedding. Supposedly, the bride drugged his drink first. And now the groom has run away." Chloe was furious. Unable to accept the humiliation of being abandoned on her own wedding day, she immediately grabbed her dress and chased after him. But unexpectedly, the moment she rushed out onto the street, she was hit by a drunk driver. sent flying into the air, and landed in a pool of blood. With her own eyes, she watched Ethan get into his car, coldly shut the door, and drive away without so much as a backward glance. "Sarah, don't marry him." When Ethan burst into the venue, Sarah and Lucas were right in the middle of exchanging their wedding rings. His voice rang out, instantly drawing everyone's attention. His face was deathly pale, and his eyes were filled with panic as he looked at Sarah, who was standing beside another man in her wedding dress. For the first time, he broke down crying. He fell to his knees and crawled toward her step by step, begging her to turn back. "Sarah, I was wrong about everything before. I was stupid for not seeing my own heart clearly. The person I love has always been you. Please give me one more chance. You can still marry me. We can still welcome our daughter together." He choked out, his voice hoarse, his eyes looking at her in absolute despair. But before Sarah could even respond, her brother jumped to his feet. "Is this guy out of his mind? What are the security guards just standing there for? Drag him out!" Mark roared. The bodyguards immediately rushed over and dragged Ethan outside. The wedding then continued seamlessly. Sarah looked at her brother and smiled gratefully. In the end, her wedding concluded perfectly. Even so, Ethan's sudden appearance had caused a significant disturbance. The Miller family felt deeply insulted and worried that Sarah's reputation might be tainted. Because of this, her parents-in-law took matters into their own hands and directly caused Ethan's family business to go bankrupt. 3 months later, Sarah saw Ethan for the final time. He had lost absolutely everything, reduced to a complete wreck. He didn't even have a home to return to. Stripped of his wealth and power, he was now nothing more than a dust-covered vagabond roaming the streets. A man who was once so dashing and composed had withered away to this pitiful state. "Good girl, get in the car. I bought durian crepes for you and the baby," Lucas said gently. He opened the car door and carefully helped Sarah, who was now pregnant, inside. Sarah withdrew her gaze, smiled, and placed a light kiss on his cheek. "Thank you, hubby." When she looked out the window again, Ethan's figure had completely vanished. Perhaps the intertwined fate between her and him had finally truly come to an end right here. And that was for the best. Thank you for listening. Bookmark.
The male lead losing absolutely everything is the perfect proof that you never know what you have until it's gone. Sometimes, letting go of a blind obsession isn't a loss. It's finally giving yourself the chance to be truly valued. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!